Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me this morning. If you're unable to attend the first webinar in this series, my name is Rachel and I am the marketing coordinator with the Winter Haven Chamber. And today we're going to be discussing how to read your Facebook reporting metrics after you've placed your ad and it's up and running. But if you have any questions throughout this presentation, please don't hesitate to pipe in and I will make sure I address those as best as possible. All right, getting started here. So let's be honest, Facebook gives us a ton of data. The amount of information you get from Facebook on the performance of your posts, your audience demographics, the campaign tracking is just absolutely amazing. While having all of this information is nice, it's only useful if you understand which data points matter the most in your business. The more you're able to successfully track how each ad campaign is doing, the more you can learn from its performance. And that's why we're going to go over some key metrics today that will allow you to better evaluate the social media ads that you're running. When you're evaluating this data, you can add any metrics to your report or dashboard for a quicker, easy update on how your campaign is performing. Well, first of all, you may be asking, well, where can I find these analytics? So if in this first slide here, if you go to your Facebook Ads Business Manager, you will have the option to customize your columns, which you can see in this screenshot on this slide. So in that drop down, you'll find a full list of the metrics available in your Ads Manager. All right, the next slide, please. All right, so once you've determined the most important metrics for your campaign, you can save them as a preset that you can see there in the bottom left corner. And that way, once you go to your Ads Manager, every time you check how your ad is performing, you don't have to go in and create this lengthy report. All of the metrics that you want to see are already being displayed. All right, so the next slide. Okay, so the Facebook metrics that I believe every brand should be tracking, these are the ones are listed right here. These are the ones that we're going to be discussing today. So we're going to touch on engagement, your reach, your impressions, your Facebook referral traffic, your page likes and follows, your click-through rate, your ad frequency, and your cost per click and cost per impression. Okay, next slide. All right, engagement. Engagement measures the amount of times someone took action in your post. So this could be clicking a link, sharing your post, making a reaction, or leaving a comment. Engagement is one of the most important Facebook metrics that you can track. For one, engagement is a sign that people actually like the content you're sharing. But another reason engagement is so valuable is it may give your post more exposure to your audience. So as you probably already know, Facebook uses an algorithm to determine where your posts show up in your followers' newsfeed. The purpose of this algorithm is to surface posts users are most likely interested in. So which is why where targeting your ads come into play, as we discussed a few weeks ago. So if one of your posts receives a ton of engagement, that signals to Facebook that it's popular. So they'll more likely surface it to your other followers. Okay, reach. Next slide, please. Reach is the number of people that see your content on Facebook. So this can either be through paid or organic posts. Okay, next slide. Another Facebook metric related to the visibility of your posts is impressions. So while reach tells you how many people saw your posts, impressions measure the number of times your posts were seen. And that includes one post was seen multiple times by a single user. So you may also be wondering why you should measure impressions. Well, impressions can give you a good idea of the viral nature of your posts. One person may get exposed to one of your posts multiple times. So for instance, if they saw it once in their feed and then again when a friend shared it, that's 2 impressions. So with all the content being thrown at us on a daily basis, especially on Facebook, getting your content seen by multiple times is necessary to get people to actually take action in whatever you're portraying. All right, the next slide. Your Facebook referral traffic. This is the amount of visitors your website gets from Facebook. So that includes traffic from people clicking links in your posts, traffic from other people sharing your ads, or visits from clicks on your profile link. Facebook, or the referral traffic, means that people felt so compelled by your headline and your description that they took time to click through and read it. If you notice your Facebook referral traffic is declining, it could be a signal that your audience doesn't like the content you're sharing, you're getting less reach, your headlines or descriptions aren't pulling in people. Whatever the case, when your traffic from Facebook starts to noticeably decline, look into it, because typically it means something's off and you may need to revise your ad.
Rach, I have a question.
Yeah.
Here. So when you're doing a post or an ad, is it best to link, say, your website, or, you know what I mean? Because sometimes if you post something, there's not necessarily a link. They have to like maybe go somewhere else to click on something. So it's best to like put a link, or, you know, like I see a lot of the ads where you can just click on it and it takes you, like, I don't know. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on what kind of ad that you're running. But if you do an organic ad and go into the ads manager to create one, you want your readers to go somewhere else to complete an action. So if it's going to, if you want them to click into your store for All for Dogwear, then that's where you would send them, and it will gauge how many people how many people are actually clicking to go to your website. Does that make sense?
Yes. So basically, when you're doing these ads, it's best to be able to have something in the ad that they can click on right away to be able to take them somewhere.
Yes, unless you're just wanting people to go to your Facebook page.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, next slide. Okay, your page likes and follows are the number of people that follow your brand on Facebook. They liked your page or opted in to have your post show up in their news feed. So you may think of them as your fans or your subscribers, which everybody wants all of those. So every time I get a new like, I'm like, woo! But your page likes show your audience size on Facebook. Over time, that number should be growing. If you're stuck around the same number of likes for months, it means one of 2 things. Either you're losing the same number of likes you're gaining, or new people aren't following you. Ideally, you want to retain your current followers and add new ones. But if you're not measuring your audience growth, you'll be left in the dark, and you won't know whether that number has fluctuated at all. Okay, the next slide. Your click-through rate. Click-through rate shows the percentage of people that see your ad and click through to your landing page. So a low click-through rate means that people aren't seeing your ad, but they're seeing your ad, but they aren't taking action. So if your click-through rate is below average, try changing your ad copy to make it more relevant to your target audience. When Facebook sees your ads are getting impressions but no clicks, it logically assumes your audience doesn't find the ad relevant. This can result in paying more per click and overall poor performance. So keep a close eye on your click-through rate. All right, next slide. Your ad frequency. Your ad frequency, this metric often gets overlooked by people, but I believe it's pretty important, because your ad frequency is the average number of times people see a specific ad. So if people see the same ad you're displaying over and over and over again, it can lose its impact and ultimately become stale. Usually if that number hits like 4, I tend to take it down or revise it and change up the ad. So in order to prevent this from happening, just keep a close eye on it. Okay. Next slide. Your cost per click and your cost per 1,000 impressions. So it's easy to get wrapped up in the money you're spending on your ads, but it may be helpful to instead focus on either your cost per click or your cost per 1,000 impression. It's a better indicator of how efficient you're spending your money. So with cost per 1,000 impression, you're charged for every 1,000 impressions you get. The turnoff for some people is that you have to pay whether or not action is actually being taken on these ads. You're strictly paying to have the ads show up, and hopefully your campaigns are good enough to drive engagement. However, if you have a few different versions of or variations of your ad, it may be helpful and is ultimately quicker and a less expensive way to find out which ads are performing and which ones are not. Your cost per click pricing. With cost per click pricing, you're charged every time someone clicks your ad. This is the most common option, and honestly, this is probably my default option of what I look at. But since you're paying for actual actions being completed rather than just having your ads show up, but the downside of this option is that your ads may get fewer impressions than if you use your cost per 1,000 impressions option. Whichever you decide to go with, just make sure you track the metrics closely to get the most out of your ad budget.
Rach, I have a question.
Yeah.
On the cost per the clicks per 1,000. So yes. So when would you choose that option as opposed to the other option?
So I would say if you're just trying to make your audience aware of something, you would want to opt to have gain more impressions. So if you strictly want someone to read the information you're portraying rather than take an action. Okay. Then I would gauge the cost per 1,000 impression instead.
So that's more like for informational posts?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Amanda, you can go to the next slide too. Thank you. Okay, so as you can see, there are a ton of Facebook metrics you can track, but it's up to you and your brand to decide which ones are important to you. And I just rattled off a ton of data, and I tried not to go down a rabbit hole of analytics because everyone's probably not an analytics nerd like I am. But does anyone have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
Hey, Rachel. I'm Donna Sheehan. I'm with the City of Winter Haven, and my budget for Facebook promotions is 0. So I depend on viral
Right.
interest to get it moving along. So if I were to start creating a small budget, what would a good annual budget be? Most of our information is just that. It's awareness, making sure people know what's going on. We're not selling a product.
Right.
People attend events, are aware of meetings, that type of thing. Is there a rule of thumb to guide me as we move forward?
Absolutely. We went over that a few weeks ago in the first one when your budget's 0. So unfortunately, to place an ad, you have to have some sort of budget, but
and what I'm thinking, as we move forward, our budget season is beginning, maybe I do need to add some money or request some funds, and what is a reasonable amount of money?
I would say if you want a lot of meat behind an ad, then it might be useful to try to boost it for $100 for a 2-week span. and you can always keep an eye on it. And if it's not performing well, you can turn that ad off or revise the copy or the image. There's also an option when you're placing your ad that you can create a slide of the same ad with different variations of the copy and the image. So a user may be getting on Facebook and they'll scroll down and see your ad, but the next time they're on Facebook, they could see the same ad, but it will look completely different with different copy and an image. And also, I recently just learned that when you're scrolling through Instagram and Instagram's ads are pulled through the same Facebook manager, that every 4 posts is an advertisement. And I had no idea. I think it's like that on Facebook as well. And I tested it. I was like 1, 2, 3, 4 ad, and I never realized that how many ads are being thrown at you every day.
Right, so that feeds into one of my questions actually, because I was noting down: is it better to have and can you set up the same ad but in different versions so that it keeps it fresh, or is it better to have it like this ad does this and then this ad does this and something completely different? Or if you're wanting to run a campaign over a period, is it better to have same ad running, or can you set it up so that you've got 4 different versions but just set it up all at one time?
I would say it depends on what information you're trying to get across. Like if you're doing an ad for an event, but you want to highlight different aspects of the event, then it would be more beneficial to do a different copy and image for each one. But if you're just trying to advertise one specific thing, then I would go with the option to just use one image and text.
Okay.
My best example that in my past life that I use the option to do a different variation is I booked an advertisement for a spa. So I was able to highlight manicures with text, and then I was able to highlight pedicures or every option or every service that they provided in one ad, but one campaign.
Right.
And when you're in your ads manager, that in the campaign, it will come up as one campaign. But if you go into your ad set, you can see all of the different options in there of that ad that you created, and you can see which one's performing the best. So you can always eliminate one of those, whichever one's not performing.
And how often would you say somebody, if they're running an ad campaign or they're running anything really, how often would you say that a business person should be looking at the analytics behind it and evaluating, is it working, is it not? Should that be a daily thing, weekly thing, or?
Definitely daily. There used to be something called a relevance score that was just eliminated, I believe, last March, which gauged how well your ad was doing in general. So if you had like a 7, you're like, oh man, my ad's doing great. But then everybody was complaining, saying it was like a vanity score. So they eliminated it. And I was one of those people. I'm like, man, my ad is doing so well. But they got rid of that.
But you can still look at that by looking at how much activity it's getting.
Yes, absolutely. I would say I look at the engagements over the impressions, because that actually tells you like how many people are interacting with your ad versus how many people are seeing them, because ultimately more people are going to see your ad if you have a bigger budget behind it. But you want to gauge more so who's actually interacting with it.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Of course. Is there any other questions? We have some Reboot with Rachel webinars in the near future that you may find helpful. We're planning on discussing Instagram in a couple weeks and how to utilize your business on Instagram. And then another one in the future is going to be how to take photos for your brand with any device that you have on hand. For me, I am a professional photographer, but I'm trying not to go. I'll try not to go into those details of ISO and f-stops and all of that. But I will talk about how to take a successful a photo that is more appealing on the eye with your cell phone or any device you have.
Well,
Love
Rachel,
that.
I appreciate all your information. And do I have it right that we can watch your past?
Yes. So I put it up on, we had one so far 2 weeks ago, and it's a bi-weekly webinar, and I put it up on our YouTube channel. So if you just search the Winter Haven Chamber on YouTube, then I created a playlist called webinars, and you can see all of the webinars that we've had throughout COVID that I've been publishing on there. So
Excellent. Thank you.
of course. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Was there any other questions before we head out? All right. Well, thank you. I hope you all join us for our next webinar, and I hope you all have an amazing Thursday.
Bye, y'all. Have a good day.